Hey guys, Yamakiller here, back again with another slideshow presentation, going again into our in-depth series, talking about Magic, more theory-based, not, showing a bunch of gameplay and stuff, but rather me talking about how the game works, different formats, different ideas, and things to get into that really can shape you to be a better player or give you a better idea of how Magic the Gathering works. And today, we are talking about how to pick a good deck. And before I get into this topic, I'd like to ask you guys a few things. First, if you do end up liking this video, make sure to give me the video a like. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate those things. I do live stream nearly 5 days a week. You could follow me there and Twitch. They'll be in the description below, along with some other social links. I would really appreciate those things. So, with that being said, let us get into this video. I'm going to be telling you guys on how to pick a good deck. Now, what do I mean by how to pick a good deck? I'm going to go in step by step about how I go about some of my process, what I wish I did, and how I would go about it if I went really in depth into this process, and what there is to do, step by step. How do I go about picking a new deck when I first look at a format? When I'm first looking to prepare for a tournament, what am I doing? What am I thinking about? And how am I going about the process in a step-by-step way to go about doing those things? So with that being said, let us get into it. Step 1. Before you even choose your deck, this is the most important thing. Do you want to play the tournament? Do not force yourself to play. Many times I see a tournament and I go like, you know what, I don't usually play that format. I don't really, think about that format, but it looks like a good value tournament, or it looks like something that'll be interesting to play. And then I don't really go through these steps. I kind of just, look at the most recent tournament, pick a deck off that, don't play a single game, don't even know what's in my deck, play the tournament on no sleep, and just, feel like garbage, do badly in the tournament, and things end up being bad. Things end up going badly for me. So that's important. Make sure you don't force yourself to play. Your life EV is important. Don't sign up for something and make yourself have to take a whole day out to play something you don't want to play. Because if you don't want to play it, you're not going to go through the steps that I'm going to tell you here today. You're not going to pick a good deck, and you're not going to do well in the tournament. The right mindset, you can make good decisions. If you want to actually play in the tournament, or you want to play in this certain format, you're going to make the good decisions. You're going to actually be able to build a good deck. You're going to be able to choose a good deck and be able to do well as you go forth and put yourself out there into trying to get a good deck. So, the actual first step, if you want to get a good deck, is identify the underlying strategies of the format. What are the key players? Let's say Modern. You're going to see Lurrus of the Dream Den. You're going to see Ragavan. You're going to see Urza's Saga. Legacy, you're going to see the Delver-esque blue-red decks. You're going to see these Bant controls with Uro, Swords to Plowshares. You're going to see combo decks playing Storm. Doomsday, you're going to see all these different archetypes and all these different formats. Look at the format, figure out what the underlying strategies are, because then you'll understand what type of decks you want to build. How do people win in the format? What are the decks looking like? What are they looking to be doing? What are their win conditions? How do the decks function? Get an idea of what's going on in the format, because if you don't understand what's going on, what each deck is trying to do to win, what their potential problems are, what their potential weakness versus what their potential strengths are, you're not going to understand why a deck is good in the format, what's going on in the format. You're not going to understand these very, very key things to be able to choose a deck, a winning deck, for your tournament. So these are very, very important things to learn before you even look at what deck you're going to be trying to choose. Step 3, look at the data. Look at what decks are doing well. Understand those decks. In Modern, Hammer Time, you got Is It Tempo, you've got Crashing Footfalls. Make sure you understand what these decks are doing, how they're constructed, what their game plan looks like. Because if you don't understand these things, how are you going to understand a deck to choose to attack this metagame? Or maybe you're even picking one of these decks as it is possibly the best deck and can attack these other decks in a very proactive, very reactive. Understand, what these decks are doing to really attack the metagame and understand why they're good. And understand what decks you need to be looking out for, or what decks you need to be looking into to choose as your deck of choice for this format. So, step 3.5, understanding the data. This is a bit more looking at the data, look at the metagame share, because even though it'll show 8 different decks, the 8th deck is very, very different than the first deck. You may need a robust sideboard for something like Hammer Time, as it showed in the past, but you won't necessarily need a robust sideboard for Tron, because Tron may have put up some results, but it doesn't necessarily work in the same way that Hammer Time does, where you need more dedicated hate, or you're going to be dying really quickly, and you're going to be needing to have your sideboard or your main deck more represented towards that deck because there's more of it. And looking at overlapping archetypes as well. Sometimes it'll show 5 different decks in a metagame share, but really they're all kind of the same breed. They're kind of just using slightly different cards, like, Grixis Death Shadow versus, a Grixis Snapcaster Mage deck, Red Black Lurrus versus Grixis Lurrus, these different decks that are kind of playing the same archetype. So you can lump them in together to go like, okay, this may look like 8 different decks I need to prepare for. It's really just one deck that I need to prepare for that has very much overlapping cards. I can use the overlapping idea to build my deck around. And don't get too in the weeds, You could be looking at very tiny percentage points on any side. You could be looking at, oh, there's 3.7% Tron, but there's 3.5% of Crashing Footfalls. Therefore, I should be using this sort of sideboard card because it really interacts in this way versus this way. You don't want to get yourself too in depth in the data, as we don't actually have the full data. There is data taken, not given to us. You're not sure exactly how these decks got to their spot in the tournament. You don't necessarily know how these decks were piloted by these people. You don't necessarily know all the data. We don't have all the league data. Some of the data that is shown in tournaments, the things that we're given, is a bit cherry picked. So we don't necessarily know exactly how good a deck is comparative to everything else because of that. So you really want to understand the data if you're going to look into it, if you're going to use it to select your deck. Now, what archetype do you want to play? This is important as well. People have strengths. I myself am much more inclined towards aggro and sometimes mid-range. I'm pretty bad at playing control. I'm pretty bad at playing combo in most contexts. You want to look at, what do I enjoy playing? What am I good at playing? And then choose that archetype and start exploring those decks that involve those archetypes. If I'm an aggro player, maybe I'll look at Burn in Modern. Maybe I'll look at Hammer Time. If I'm a combo player, maybe I'll look at, in Legacy, I'll be playing Doomsday, or maybe I'll be playing Ad Nauseam Tendrils. Look at these archetypes, and once you know what archetype you want to be playing, look at the decks that encompass that archetype. Now, there's also, 2-in-1s. You can play something like the Indomitable Creativity deck in Modern that uses a combo aspect to kill your opponent with Emrakul and Velomachus, but also has a controlling role, uses Planeswalkers, uses Lightning Bolt, uses Prismatic Ending, all these things to control the board to get to your combo. So sometimes if you're like, oh, I like playing control, but I also like playing combos, sometimes a deck can encompass both of those things. So if you want to have a 2-in-1 deck, then you have that ability. You have that option sometimes. If you want to have that option, look at all the decks, look at the data. Is there something that fulfills that role and is also good? It has shown results that shows that there is potential for it. So, a side note, another side note to this, while you're looking at all these things, while you're looking at the decks, before you choose what deck you want to be picking, make sure you can afford to play the deck you choose. If you're looking at, Elementals in Modern, but it's 1,300 tickets on Moto, not everyone can afford to play that. You want to be looking for a more affordable thing, something that fits inside of your budget. Magic is an expensive hobby, but not everything is necessarily expensive to play. Burn is 200 tickets. Eldrazi Tron's like 400 tickets. Delver, 1,000 tickets. You can't necessarily play what you want to play. And this changes between MTGO, Arena, Paper, all these things. In Arena, wildcards, it can be a problem. Sometimes you need to spend your time drafting, spend your time elsewhere before you can actually get to the deck you want to play. And make sure to never forget to ask a friend. Sometimes there are friends that got all the cards in Paper. They've got all the Legacy decks. They've got all the Modern decks. They've got everything that you would ever need. And sometimes you just need to ask, and you can, have your pick of the litter, be able to pick whatever deck you want. Sometimes your friends don't necessarily have what you need, and sometimes you don't have what you need, and you got to really streamline your deck thinking and go to these specific decks that you actually can play in Paper, the specific decks that can play in MTGO, because it would suck to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what deck you want to play. You figured it out, and then, whoops, I can't afford it. And that is not a place you want to be. That is not any place you want to be, is wasting all of your time on a deck that you can't even play. So with that out of the way, let's get on to the next step. Step 5, pick your deck. You now have the knowledge, you've looked at the metagame, you understand the underlying effects of what every deck is trying to do, you understand what archetype you want to play, you've got the knowledge, use it. Look at the decks, pick a deck that you go like, okay, this is the deck that encompasses everything that I want to do. It encompasses, I understand the underlying, what it's doing, I understand why it's good against these other decks, and I understand it fits the archetype that I play well. I'm going to pick this deck, and that's what I'm going to do. But there's something else to be learned. There's many other players, and many other players have lots of good intelligence and good things to think about because they've done the same thing that you have done. Possibly they've done it even better because they have more time to do it, or they've looked at avenues that you and areas that you haven't necessarily put your time into. So listen to others, get all this information from other people that can also be useful, but trust yourself. Just because someone else says you need to play Hammer Time or you're messing around, there's no other deck that's playable, that's the only thing you can do. But you think, I have a deck that's good against Hammer Time, it's good against the rest of the metagame, I should be playing this deck because it's good in the way that I play, I think it's good in the metagame, and I think it's a good choice for me. So make sure that you trust yourself first, but listen to others. Get their input, and maybe it'll influence your decision, but also make sure that it doesn't overwrite your decision. You don't overwrite yourself and listen to someone else before you listen to yourself. Step 6, play some games. You've picked your deck, you have it all laid out, you've gotten the cards and everything. Make sure to play it. Sometimes you think you figured out the right deck, think it's good for you, and you play it out and you're like, nah, I don't really know how to play this. I can't really figure this out in time. Or it just doesn't play how I thought it would. It doesn't really play to my strengths. It doesn't really play. Maybe it's not good in the metagame anymore. Maybe it's not good against the decks you're playing. Make sure that you play the deck before you put it into a big tournament. This is something that I fall on a lot. Sometimes I see a deck that I see on MTG Goldfish, or I see a streamer play it, and I go like, that looks like a great deck. I'm just going to pick it up and just smash people. I've seen it played. I don't need to play for myself. I'm a good enough player. And then I play it. I don't know how to sideboard. I don't know what cards are in my deck. I haven't figured out the intricacies and the synergies between my cards, and I just look like a monkey playing it. So make sure you play your deck, whether it be an MTGO League, some practice matches versus your friend, just even solitaire playing it by yourself. Anything to really understand exactly how your deck's looking, mulliganing your opening hands, your sideboarding, and such like that is very, very key to having success in picking a good deck. Make sure the deck is for you, as I said. You can play it and go like, this isn't quite my jam. I'm either not having fun doing this, or I'm not, doing well with it, or something's wrong, and I got to pick a new deck. So with that being said, if step 6 goes wrong and you need to pick a new deck, just go back to step 5. You have all the underlying information. You just got to pick a new deck. Don't go necessarily from step 1 and start at the beginning. You figured out all these things. Make sure to use it. In this process, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you go through 2, 3, 4, 5 decks in a month before you get to this big tournament that you're practicing for. But sometimes Rome was not built in a day. Sometimes it takes you a really long time. You got to go through the process many times, and it really takes you a long time to get it down, but you get better at it. But sometimes you pick your first deck, snap, you fall in love, it's the exact thing that you want, and you don't have to work anymore. Sometimes, it takes 2 days to figure out your deck. Sometimes it takes 3 months. It's just a matter of the format. It's a matter of your how well you can adapt to things, and a matter of also, sometimes the puzzle pieces align and everything's a perfect fit for you, and it just goes perfectly. And that's great too. Step 7, make sure your deck is pristine. Check on the little things. Make sure your mana base is correct, Make sure the little things. If you're playing, 4 Silent Clearing in your mono white Hammer Time deck, and you're playing something like Prismatic Ending in your sideboard, maybe you want to switch up the Canopy lands to have more colors in the off chance that something happens. Make sure that your mana base has all the correct colors you need. Sometimes the deck list that you took didn't necessarily make the right mana base. Figure out those last couple sideboards for your individualized metagame. Sometimes you're playing in a small metagame where it's 20 to 30 people, you know most of them, and 10 of the 30 people are playing Tron. Well, if 10 of the 30 people are playing Tron, put a couple extra Tron hate pieces, 0 people are playing Control, take out your anti-control cards. But if you're doing something like a 2,000 player tournament and things are going to be very wide, don't necessarily specialize your sideboard for a certain thing. Make it broad and make it overreaching, making it so when you play against those 10, 11, 13 different decks over 15 rounds, that you're going to have things for everyone. So have more broad sideboard answers versus specified, very specific sideboard answers. So it really depends on what type of tournament you're playing, and also, what type of deck you're playing as well. So, step 8, hope for the best. You've done everything you can in your deck building decision. All the prep in the world does not guarantee a victory. I could pick the best deck, the deck that wins the tournament. I could have the best sideboard. I could have the best main deck. And it all crumbles down on mulligan to 5 because I have no lands in my opening hand. Picking a good deck does not guarantee success, but what it does do is it guarantees that you picked a good deck. A good deck can get you somewhere between, a good deck gets you the highest chance of winning, but it doesn't guarantee a win. Having a bad deck will give you a low chance of winning, and it also doesn't guarantee a win. So you want to give yourself the best chance of doing well. You want to give the best chance of yourself to having fun. You want to give the best chance of yourself to lower your variance in the event. But the things that you can take control of, take control of them. That's picking your deck. So that's something that you should be doing, something that you should put time into doing, especially if it's an event that you care about. As we started from step one, make sure you care about the event. And when you do care, all these things will come easily and they'll come with time. So all that said, you just picked a great deck. You just picked a good deck. You found the archetype you wanted to play. You found the deck. You know all the information. You understand how the other decks work. You made a good sideboard. You made a good mana base. You did it all right. You went through the process, and even though after you're done with the process and you do it all right, it won't necessarily guarantee you a victory in a tournament. It will guarantee that you do better in your next tournament. I want you to go through all these steps and iterate on them and make them great and make them work for your next tournament. Tell me if you end up doing these things and you do well in a tournament and it helped you in any way. I would love to hear it in the comments below. I would love to hear your guys' feedback. Was there a step that I missed? Was there something that I didn't go over as in-depth as you would like? Did you think the video was perfect and everything is great and, you want to marry me? You want to do anything like that? You want to give me something of your own? But let me know in the comments. Remember, guys, if you like the video, make sure to like the video. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate all those things. I love, love, love to have you guys back for more of these videos. It's going to be on a weekly basis, giving you guys something interesting to watch, something more in-depth, something more than just, my uploaded gameplay videos. So that being said, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it a lot. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.